Hello everybody and welcome to this video. In this video, I basically want to go over expressions and talk about what expressions are and how they're used. Expressions is a really important concept that you will see throughout your programming career, and it's really the essentials for programming, and you'll often use it many times and often in many programs that you write. So let me go ahead and get started. I am going to create a new class, and it's always a good idea to always create a new class each time you're building a new program and covering a new concept. So I will go ahead and practice that, and let me go ahead and create a class called expressions. Public class. Again, this is how you set up a Java code. Squigglies, and then close the squigglies. And then let me go ahead and write a main method. So again, this is what we covered last week. And it's always a good idea to always create methods every time you write a program and then call it main. So let me go ahead and practice what we covered for the last couple of videos. Public static void, I'll call this expression. And so basically expressions is, think of it like math. So things like multiplication, addition, subtractions, and things that you've seen in math. Although math is not a really, like, you don't need to know math in depth to be able to program, but you often need to know the basics of math that you've been covering throughout your career, such as adding two numbers or dividing two numbers or order of operations or PEMDAS. So those are really important because they come into play here. So let me go ahead and talk about something that we've always been used to, such as this, like 1 plus 1. And for those of you guys who are watching this video, you guys already know the answer to this. I hope so. 1 plus 1 is 2. So now, why is that important? Because in Java, you can't just do 1 plus 1. You have to actually do something with it. For example, you'll either put in a variable, which will be the topic of the next couple of videos from now, or you either print it. So for example, let me just go ahead and do a system. Let me just print this out. System dot out dot println, and let me just go ahead and do 1 plus 1, and then do a semicolon, and let me go ahead and call this method in main, because that's how methods work, and that's what we have been talking about for the last couple of videos. Let me go ahead and save it, and I'm going to go ahead and save it here, and let me go ahead and run it. As you can see, it printed out the number 2, because what we're telling the program is to print out the number 2. And there's also multiplication. So for example, this is the multiplication, so we can do 1 times 1, and you guys should know the answer to that. That will print out 1. There's also division, 1 divided by 1. So there's that. You could also get more fancy. You could do like 100 times 70 plus 360 divided by 4 minus 100 plus 15. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it does order of operations. So it does multiplication first, and then it does division, and then it does addition and subtraction from starting from the left to the right. So again, this is the idea of PEMDAS, and there's the answer to that. There's also the idea of, there's this symbol in Java called mod. Mod is basically the remainder of a number. So for example, if I print out, let's say I print out 10 mod 2. What this is saying is, when I divide 10 by 2, what's the remainder? So in this case, 10 divided by 2 is 5 with the remainder of 0. So what the mod will do in this case is it will print out 0. And I can go ahead and get more fancy. I could do 11 mod 2. So for example, what this does is, how many times does 2 go into 11? So if I do 11 divided by 2, again, if I set up my like that little quotient, that little division symbol that you guys have been used to since like 3rd grade, and you do 11, and then you put the 2 on the outside, and then you do how many times does 2 go into 11, which is 5 times, and then you subtract it, so you do 5 times 2, which is 10, with the remainder of 1. So what this result ends up being is 1. So if I run it, the result here is 1. So that's just the idea of expressions in Java and a little intro to them. But here's the interesting fact. For example, if I did 10 divided by 4, what This is known as integer division, and we'll cover this more in depth later on and in some videos, in future videos. But if I do 10 divided by 4, let's see what happens if I do 10 divided by 4. It's 2. But if I was actually to put this in a calculator, let me go ahead and open up a calculator. Let me go ahead and do 10 divided by 4. Oops, I meant 10 divided by 4. We get 2.5. So what Java does is something known as integer division, meaning whenever you divide two integers, again we'll talk about integers in the next video, but whenever I divide numbers that are whole numbers, basically, those what it does is it doesn't actually keep the decimal. It basically just keeps the whole number. So like for example, 10 divided by 4, it'll just keep it 2, which is why it's printed out 2. But here's another concept. This is known as a decimal number. If I do 10.0 divided by 2, let's see what this does. Sorry, 10.0 divided by, what was it, 4? Can't remember, but let me just go ahead and run it again. But if I do this, what it did is it kept the number 2.5. So basically, this is the difference between dividing whole numbers without decimals and actually dividing decimal numbers. So what Java does is when it divides two numbers that are whole numbers with no decimal, it doesn't add the remainder, meaning like the decimal is like 2.5566667. It doesn't keep that number. But let's go ahead and do 10.0 divided by 3. See how it kept the number 3.3333555? But if I just did 10 divided by 3, what this does is just prints out 3. And that's just a little introduction to expressions. We'll talk more about expressions in depth in the next few videos. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned some interesting facts and you got a little teaser into expressions. And we'll continue next time, and I'll hope to see you next video. Take care.